Good morning, folks. John Havlicek here with another edition of Common Grounds here on Saturday, October 11th. I'm having my second cup of coffee already. I'm kind of an early riser. And so the common ground that I want to talk about again today is healthcare and the shutdown. This is impacting everybody, either directly or indirectly. And I think we need to really put it in perspective, because so often we hear these eye-popping numbers that to us, as just regular folks, these numbers are kind of really hard to wrap your head around. And so I'm trying to do that for you. Okay, so Affordable Care Act, healthcare, and government shutdown. So here we go. In Wisconsin right now, about 300,000 people have policies on the Affordable Care Act marketplace. Okay, so they're getting their insurance not through their employer, okay, through the government, and they're probably getting some sort of subsidy. Okay, and the Democrats passed increased subsidies a few years ago and want to keep those increased subsidies. Republicans do not. Republicans repealed the increase in the one big beautiful bill a few months ago. Well, what does that mean? If the increased subsidies go away, tens of thousands of people here in Wisconsin will lose their access to health care. For a lot of those folks that are on the Affordable Care Act out in the marketplace, their premiums will double. They will double. Okay, I couldn't absorb a doubling of my regular costs like healthcare or housing or whatever. So there's no way these folks would be able to afford that. There's just no way. Okay, Republicans, they're making this kind of honestly silly claim that Democrats want to just give free healthcare to illegal immigrants. Yeah, right. Wrong. Okay, that is a lie, kind of like death panels, those of us that are old enough to remember when the Republicans were saying that the Affordable Care Act was going to let doctors pull the plug on granny. I forget who it was, Republican senator claimed. Seriously, give me a break, right? I'm not sure how to have reasonable discourse, right? Because that's what we're trying to do here, reasonable discourse. So the truth is, that if someone is here legally but is not a citizen, they're on a student visa or they're on some kind of other visa, and they can't afford health care while they're here, they may be able to get government assistance. And that's not even a drop in the bucket. That's a molecule of water in the drop in the bucket. It's insignificant. It's not even worth thinking about. Okay, but what kind of dollars are we talking about for the entire subsidy increase? We're about $35 billion per year for the subsidy increase. Okay, and that's a big number. You're like, wow, that's more than I make. I'm a public school teacher. That's actually more than I make. Okay, but what else is worth something like $35 billion? Because that's what we're talking about, right? We got a balancing act for the federal budget. Well, the federal estate tax generates about that every year. It's going to wiggle, of course, but it generates about that. And maybe you're like, oh, the estate tax, the death tax, I'm going to pay that. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you're watching this, if you're one of my Facebook friends or something, you're not paying an estate tax, when you get some kind of an inheritance. The first $14 million are excluded. And if it went back to $2 million exemption on the estate tax like it was in the 70s and 80s, that alone would generate tens of billions of dollars of revenue. So hyper wealthy people dodging estate taxes, or people being able to get health care and dodging death. Okay, what else is about $35 billion? There was that private jet tax exemption that was muscled through so that corporations and hyper wealthy people can claim the cost of a private jet and deduct that from their taxes. That's about $30 to $35 billion per year. So, somebody who's hyper wealthy being able to fly on their own jet, or people having health care. This is also a tough one, right? And I alluded to this, I mentioned this, I think, in a previous video, but something else that's getting swept up in the shutdown is WIC benefits. It's food assistance for folks that are struggling. WIC is Women, Infants, and Children here in Wisconsin. And that program is set to run out of money pretty soon if the shutdown doesn't get resolved. So now we have these things that Republicans made permanent, the estate tax thing, the private jet thing, versus health care, versus groceries for folks that are struggling to make ends meet. That's how this plays out. And I would think that you and I, no matter how we vote, would have common ground on kids should be able to have groceries. People should be able to go to the doctor when they're sick. I really have not a lot of interest in making sure that somebody can deduct the cost of their private jet from their taxes. I don't. All right, so that's our common ground, and I hope you have a good weekend, folks.